Japanese literature is divided into four periods: ancient, classical, medieval, and modern literature. Before the introduction of kanji from China, there was no writing system in Japan. At first, Chinese characters were used in Japanese syntactical formats, and the literary language was classical Chinese, resulting in sentences that looked like Chinese but were phonetically read as Japanese. Chinese characters were used not for their meanings, but because they had a phonetic sound which resembled the Japanese word. Modification of the normal usage of Chinese characters to accommodate Japanese names and expressions is already evident in the oldest known inscription, like the sword. The use of Chinese characters initiated a centuries-long association of literary composition with the art of calligraphy. Chinese characters were later adapted to write Japanese speech, creating what is known as the Manyogana, the earliest form of kana or syllabic writing. The earliest works were created in the Nara period. This includes Kojiki, Nihon Shoki, and Manyoshu. Kojiki is a work recording the Japanese mythology and legendary history. It contains a mixture of Chinese characters used to represent their Chinese meanings and Chinese characters used to represent a phonetic sound. Nihon Shoki is a chronicle with a slightly more solid foundation in historical records. Manyoshu is an anthology of poetry. There are more than 120 songs in the Kojiki and Nihon Shoki that were written in phonetic transcription. Classical Japanese literature refers to literature produced during the Heian period. The Heian period considered the golden era of art and literature. The Tale of Genji by Murasaki Shikibu is considered the preeminent masterpiece of Heian fiction and an early example of a work of fiction in the form of a novel. Other important works of this period includes the Kokin Wakashu and the Pillow Book, written by Sei Shonagon. Sei Shonagon is Murasaki Shikibu's contemporary and rival. The Kokin Wakashu is a waka poetry anthology. The Pillow Book is an essay about the life, loves, and pastimes of nobles in the emperor's court. The Iroha poem is one of the standard orderings for the Japanese syllabary and was also written during the early part of this period. During this time, the imperial court patronized poets, many of whom were courtiers or ladies-in-waiting. Editing anthologies of poetry was a national pastime. The poetry was elegant, sophisticated, and expressed emotions in a rhetorical style, which reflects the aristocratic atmosphere. Medieval Japanese literature is marked by the strong influence of Zen Buddhism. Also during this period, Japan experienced many civil wars, which led to the development of a warrior class and a widespread interest in war tales, histories, and related stories. Work from this period is notable for its insights into life and death, simple lifestyles, and redemption through killing. A representative work is the Tale of the Heike, an epic account of the struggle between the Minamoto and Taira clans for control of Japan at the end of the 12th century. Other important tales of the period include Kamo no Chomi's Hojoki and Yoshida Kenko's Tsurezure Gusa. Other notable genres in this period were Renga and Noh theater. Both were rapidly developed in the middle of the 14th century during the early Muromachi period. Renga is also known as the linked verse. It is a Japanese collaborative poetry written by more than one author working together. The opening stanza of the Renga, called the Hokku, became the basis for the modern haiku form of poetry. Noh theater is a theater involving music, dance, and drama. The literature of this time was written during the generally peaceful Tokugawa period, commonly referred to as the Edo period, due in large part to the rise of the working and middle classes in the new capital. Forms of popular drama developed which would later evolve into kabuki. The Jiruri and kabuki dramatist Chikamatsu Monzemon became popular at the end of the 17th century. Matsuo Basho wrote Oku no Hosomichi, a travel diary. Hokusai, Japan's most famous woodblock print artist, also illustrated fiction, as well as his famous 36 Views of Mount Fuji. At this time, there was a minor Western influence trickling into the country from the Dutch settlement at Nagasaki. It was the importation of Chinese vernacular fiction that proved the greatest outside influence on the development of early modern Japanese fiction. Ihara Saikaku might be said to have given birth to the modern consciousness of the novel in Japan, mixing vernacular dialogue into his humorous and cautionary tales at the pleasure quarters. Jipensha Ikku wrote Tokaidochu Hizakurege, a mix of travelogue and comedy. Tsuga Teisho, Takebe Ayatari, and Okajima Kanzan were instrumental in developing the Yomihon. Yomihon is a historical romance almost entirely in prose, influenced by Chinese vernacular novels such as Three Kingdoms and Water Margin. In addition to other Yomihon, Kyokutei Bakin wrote the extremely popular fantasy and historical romance Nanso Satomi Hakkinen. New genres included horror, crime stories, morality stories, and comedy, often accompanied by colorful woodcut prints. At this time, it marked the reopening of Japan to the West and a period of rapid industrialization. Authors are known for the beauty of their language and their tales of love and sensuality. Notably, Tanizaki Junichiro, Japan's first winner of the Nobel Prize for Literature. Kawabata Yasunari, a master of psychological fiction. Hino Ashihei wrote lyrical bestsellers glorifying the war. Japan's defeat in World War II influenced Japanese literature during the 1940s and 1950s. Many authors wrote stories about disaffection, loss of purpose, and the coping with defeat. Dazai Osamu's novel The Setting Sun tells of a soldier returning from Manchukuo. Mishima Yukio began writing in the post-war period. He is well known for both his nihilistic writing and his controversial Suicide by Seppuku. Kojima Nobuo's short story, The American School, portrays a group of Japanese teachers of English. Prominent writers of the 1970s and 1980s were identified with intellectual and moral issues in their attempts to raise social and political consciousness. One of them, Oe Kenzaburo, wrote his best-known work, A Personal Matter, and became Japan's second winner of the Nobel Prize for Literature. Murakami Haruki is one of the most popular and controversial of today's Japanese authors. His genre-defying, humorous, and surreal works have sparked fierce debates in Japan over whether they are true literature or simple pop fiction. Another best-selling contemporary author is Banana Yoshimoto. Popular fiction, non-fiction, and children's literature all flourished in urban Japan during the 1980s. Many popular works fell between pure literature and pulp novels, including all sorts of historical serials, information-packed docudramas, science fiction, mysteries, detective fiction, business stories, war journals, and animal stories. Non-fiction covered everything from crime to politics. Although factual journalism predominated, many of these works were interpretive, reflecting a high degree of individualism. Manga or comic books have penetrated almost every sector of the popular market. They include virtually every field of human interest, such as a multi-volume high school history of Japan. And for the adult market, a manga introduction to economics and pornography. At the end of the 1980s, manga represented between 20 and 30% of total annual publications in Japan, representing sales of some 400 billion yen annually. In contemporary Japan, there is a debate over whether the rise in popular forms of entertainment such as manga and anime has caused a decline in the quality of literature in Japan.